Hot Apostle. Help us build the kingdom. Like, share, and subscribe.
So we celebrate the feast of Saints Timothy and Titus today. And I think it's interesting, something that is interesting about this reading from St. Paul to Timothy. He begins by saying, Paul, as he often does in his letters, an apostle of Christ, to my dear child. And so Paul, begins with this identification of who he is. And then he goes on to remind Timothy of who he is. He reminds Timothy that he has this mother and this grandmother who were people of faith, and that Timothy is a person of faith, and that Paul has laid his hands on Timothy and given him a gift. And he's reminding him, don't forget the gift you were given. Stir it up. This whole idea of who you are. Do you know who you are? This understanding of the great gift of being and the gifts that God has given to us. You would think that it's very elementary that Timothy would not have forgotten that St. Paul laid his hands on him and gave him this gift. But he still has to remind him. Maybe you have to be reminded. Maybe I have to be reminded. And what was one of the things that came with the gift that Timothy was given? Not a spirit of cowardice, a spirit of boldness. You have a spirit of boldness that was given to you and hands were laid upon you. I know you weren't necessarily ordained. We think this is St. Paul talking about when Timothy was ordained, but when you were confirmed. Remember that? Hands were laid upon you, and a spirit was given to you, a spirit of wisdom and knowledge, a spirit of fortitude or courage. That's who you are. That's who Timothy was. But still, Timothy had to be encouraged. He had to be reminded, didn't he? And what else? What other kind of spirit was given him? The power of love and self-control. Sometimes we just need to be reminded. You can control yourself. You can control your tongue. You can zip it. You can put the plate away. You can set the fork down. You have the power of self-control. Yes? Say, yes. That's right. Timothy is being reminded of these, kind of basic things about who he is. Sometimes people want to challenge us. Sometimes people want to even accuse us of being something less. There was another option for the gospel today, where Jesus is the strong man, right? Where they're accusing Jesus of being evil, of even being Satan. But Jesus knows who he is. Do you know who you are in Christ Jesus? Timothy, remember, my dear child, grace and peace from God the Father. And, he gives them these words of encouragement. Maybe your kids need words of encouragement. Maybe you need words of encouragement to remember the gifts that we have, the gift of courage, the gift of self-control, the gift of faith. May all these gifts be stirred into flame as they were in Timothy and in Titus, whose lives and faith we remember today.